Everyone, Kaye here. I'm so excited to present today Alyssa Kuhn as our featured violinist of the month. Welcome, Alyssa. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Alyssa is a violinist in Illinois. She has her own private studio. She's received her master's from Western Illinois University in music education. And before that, she received her bachelor's in bassoon at Binghamton University. And currently, Alyssa has 14 students, 3 are piano students and the others are violin students. She's located in Peoria, Illinois. And the reason I have chosen Alyssa as our violinist of the month is because she is such an inspiration to so many violinists out there, musicians in general, I would say. For many reasons, Alyssa has an amazing work ethic and she's an incredible teacher. Your first instrument was actually piano, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And you studied piano in New York?
Yes, I grew up in New York, in Brooklyn, and then Long Island, and I started playing piano at 4 by ear. And then when I was 6, they got me piano lessons till I finished high school. And then in college, I focused more on the bassoon because I played the bassoon middle school and high school and loved that instrument very much. I actually went my first year to Carnegie Mellon University for music performance there. I was a full scholarship student there, and then I transferred to Binghamton University for a variety of reasons.
And you started violin 20 years ago, correct?
Correct. I started studying violin 20 years ago with my youngest child, who's now 24. So I was a Suzuki mom, just helping that little girl when she was 3 play the violin, and the Suzuki studio told me to rent a violin for myself so that it would help my child in her endeavors. So I did, and I fell in love with the violin right then and there.
So the very first moment you played the violin, you knew this was the instrument.
It found me rather than I was searching for it or for a something. I was just being a good mom, take my daughter to music lessons. We were taking Orff classes for her, little child music classes, Carl Orff. And then in the next room was a little boy playing the violin. And she said, I want to do what that little boy does. And so I spoke to them. And so, yeah, so that's exactly it. It found me, and it was through my youngest child that it found me.
Before this, did you ever have an interest or an inkling that the violin was calling to you?
At times when we would go see a professional orchestra performance, as an adult, you know, after college, after everything, after being a parent already, and I would always wonder in the back of my mind, wow, what would it be like to actually be able to do something like that, to play the violin? That was even before this child was born, but I always kind of negated the idea because I figured, oh, you know, you really need to start when you're a very little child, and it's too late for me. So I'm just going to enjoy these beautiful concerts. I teach piano. At that point, I had a very big piano studio, about 20 piano students, and I loved music. I loved teaching piano. Everything was great. But I did have this little tingle in the back of my brain always, you know, where it was calling to me, but I just kind of never paid it any attention. I didn't validate it because I didn't think it would be possible.
Now, this is incredible. You say at this moment, you had the inkling before your daughter, before you were the Suzuki mama. And I just want to throw in so everybody knows, even though you say now, this was 20 years ago or more, you had the thoughts, this isn't possible, it's too late for me. I'm a pianist, not to think about the violin or to start a new instrument. But what actually happened, we're just going to fast forward everything so people know where you are now. You've soloed at Carnegie Hall. And I mean, this is like the highest peak for any violinist, and you did it. So this is, I mean, I just get goosebumps when I think of your story, that how incredibly inspiring this is to violinists whenever they think these thoughts, what can actually be possible.
Yes, yes, it can totally be possible. No matter how old or young you are. I mean, I have a 3-year-old student. I have, a woman who's an empty nester who studies with me, and she is doing very well. She's been with me for about 2 years. She plays in third position. She reads in third position. And next step, we're going to start talking about vibrato with her. So, and then I have everything in between. So from 3 years old all the way, through empty nesters. And then I have another adult pharmacist whose children are in high school, and she just chose to study violin. She just started with me 2 weeks ago, and she just loves it. And she's, it's a different perspective when you come to it as an adult. But I believe that if you have the desire to want to obtain the skill set, then it doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what your past was, or where you were, or what you used to play, or what you never played. If you never played an instrument, if this is your idea, this is your goal, and this is something you really want to check out and see if it's for you, you're never too old to do something like this.
That's beautiful. So incredible inspiration. And you have a website for your studio, correct?
I do. I have a website. Do find me on my website as far as hiring me for an instructor. But I have to say that most of my clientele are word of mouth. So people that hear about me tell people that, they should come study with me in my community. So it's very word of mouth here. But here and there, some people do actually find me from my website for sure. I can say I have about 4 students right now that found me on the website.
I'll put a link to your website so people can check that out.
Yes.
Yeah, and also if anybody is in the Peoria area that's watching this video, or in Illinois that's close to Peoria, to contact you to be part of your studio.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some physical issues that you were having when we started working together, because I do have a lot of violinists adult violinists that come to me that have issues from overuse, from playing in orchestras, or just playing over practicing, or trying to find a way to play more relaxed. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that with you, because I know that's something that we've worked on and has been really beneficial to your violin journey.
Yes, for sure. Indeed. When you learn to play the violin, especially when you're an adult, I always kind of compare it to learning how to ski as a grown-up. So when you're set at the top of a mountain or at the top of any ski slope and you've never skied before, and it's a very frightening, overwhelming experience. And we grown-ups, we tense very badly against the unknown. And we just start recruiting every single muscle in our body, because we're afraid of what's going to happen when we go down that mountain for the very first time. If we don't realize, well, you can cut across, and you can cut across, you don't go straight down. And so, but even still, you don't know which muscles to recruit and which muscles to relax. And it's the same way with violin. Holding a violin is scary, because it's, you feel like it's such a precious thing. You're afraid to drop it. You're afraid to break it. You're afraid something's going to go wrong very quickly. You don't want to drop the bow. You don't want to drop. So you're using everything, and it's very up here. It's these muscles, especially up here, more so than in skiing. You've got the legs, you've got the hips, you've got all that other stuff too. So you're talking about a very central, your torso and your neck and your shoulders. And so those are all very tight. Neck, you don't know, should I squeeze and grip and clamp down all the time? You don't have a good sense of that in the beginning. And so for me, that was definitely some of my issues. I didn't know which muscles I could relax and let go and let them go. So that was a big problem for me in the beginning. I would say maybe in the first 15 years. And because I was always activating extra muscles, I did develop a tendonitis in my right shoulder because I couldn't isolate and comb through which muscles I didn't have to use. And I also didn't know exactly how to use my bowing arm. It was that right arm that really was problematic. Tensing up, the shoulder and the neck and pulling it up. And not only that, but in the entire bowing arm, like I wouldn't give the bowing arm a break. So this bicep tendon right here really got beaten up badly. So by the time I met you, Heather, we were taking lessons, and I had taken off some time from playing because that's how much pain I was in. I had to, after my graduate studies, I had to stop playing for many, many months at a time just to rest and do some physical therapy and ice it and, get it recovered. And then I'd start all over again. But again, the pain would come back until I finally started studying with Heather, who was very observant and very methodically took apart my shoulder, my arm usage, my bow hold, my thumb usage, and she realized certain things very, very quickly on what, that the possibility was there that I didn't have to play and be in pain, and that I would be able to, in fact, play again without having pain. So we worked together, and she really changed my bowing arm very much, especially the up bows. The up bows were my big thing, because if you think of it, when you're playing the violin, you're working like a hairdresser or a dentist where you're out here, all the time. But the trick for us was, you make your down, this is a terrible angle, but when you make a down bow, okay, but then when I brought it up, I was still here. So I was down and up, down and up, and down and up, and down and up. And this was getting very inflamed as a result of that. So what we realized was down, and then on the up, drop that in. That was that was the $1 million fix for me. And as soon as I started bowing like that, I just giving that elbow up, that was a game changer. That was a game changer for how I played, but it not only did it for me, but it also enabled me to teach my students how to bow like this so that they wouldn't bear the brunt of this type of bowing arm. So it really, Heather, you really changed how, not only how I play, but how I teach. And it is especially a blessing when I work with my grown-up students, because I learned as a grown-up, and I know what it feels like to be tight, tense, and not know which muscles to activate and when to let it go and give it up and let gravity take it and be, be floppy and be loose and be relaxed. And Heather, you have really afforded me the opportunity to explore how to use myself and how to just get more comfortable holding the violin. So the bowing arm was huge, and then of course we explored the thumb, and I wear this little ring splint support because Heather inspired me to go. I went to an occupational therapist actually who she deals with hands and hand pain. So I had a little bit of pain in my wrist, and this splint was made for me, custom made, and it just helps with this one joint so that my joint was going the wrong way. And so this builds up the cartilage so that the joint is in the right way. And then between that and adapting the proper thumb placement in the bow hold, that again alleviated that pain. So, Heather, you really, influence and change so many things. I know you call yourself the holistic violinist, and I can totally understand that. I know, that I understand why you do so. And, I respect what you do so much online. I mean, you're not only fixing all of that, but you also inspire so many other, the proper technique and everything else, the artistry that goes along with it. So you're just, the violin teacher, but also with a more holistic approach to the whole body. And so that's just been a huge blessing for me, really.
Oh, thank you, Alyssa. Yeah, it's always a pleasure for me to see the positive effects of the work that we do together. And these changes that you're talking about, they're really small and incremental changes, but they manifest huge effects in your violin journey. So I'm sure you could even talk about how it affected your tone, these different changes that we made.
I feel like for me, the tone was very related to, and maybe for some people this is true and maybe for other people it's not. I feel like sometimes people go through different paths in their lives where they have challenges and difficulties. And for me, I know I certainly suffered it when I was younger and had some issues that I had to overcome. And I feel like some of those impediments manifested themselves in my bowing arm as well. So that those mental, psychological ideas and thoughts that stayed with me for, from 40 or 50 years ago, they can kind of settle in your brain and affect how you use yourself. And they can actually, these thoughts and ideas can actually impede your efforts when you're trying to physically accomplish something such as drawing a bow. You can, if you don't have certain confidences and you don't have certain positive feelings towards yourself, as far as mostly confidence issues, if you don't have those certain confidences due to specific events that happened in your life, that can really block your bowing arm. It can block, it's kind of like when you're a tennis player and you go to hit the tennis ball. If you're playing against a much better player, sometimes instead of that forehand being there, when you make the contact with the ball, the wrist will just do that. Because up here, you don't have the confidence, you'll miss the stroke because she's a much better player than you are. And you don't have the confidence to follow that through. And it's that same kind of thing, like when you're playing tennis and your wrist, some players will just, the wrist, you're all set to get that forehand done, but then the wrist, and that would happen to me too. I was a very accomplished tennis player when I was younger, and that would always happen to me when I was in a match against someone who I knew was much better than I was. If it was somebody who I was better than, it wouldn't be a problem. But if I needed to call upon that wrist and it was somebody better, the wrist would always just go out and I couldn't implement the stroke. So I think that those issues, we work on getting them resolved and we can push through them with kinesiology. We can work with kinesiologists to help with mind-body connections and help remove negative energy and negative blockages. We can use other tools. We can go, to a counselor. We can talk to a trusted friend or, a religious leader in our lives or psychologist or anybody like this that can help you clear that through, work that through, and then the blockage can get removed. And then you can begin to nurture your tone. And that's so sometimes we have to back up 3 steps in our learning process and take care of certain other issues that have nothing to do with playing the violin at all. But, but then we work through those, and then you remove the blockage, and then you can begin to really enjoy your violin journey even more. And, then the open strings and the scales and, the whole thing, and then start really getting a good bite of the apple and really enjoying it.
I love the way that you have described it. I mean, that's exactly it. It's just these things that may have happened to us even at a younger age stay within our bodies, and perhaps it could be trapped emotions. It could be some sort of energetic block, exactly like you described, that's sitting there in the body, and it manifests itself as tension, or it's just blocked energy, which is going to affect playing the violin and the tone. If we think of this as chi or any energetic, if you want to think of any type of energetic flow, and there's some sort of stoppage, it's definitely going to be manifest. It's going to manifest itself in the bow arm. I feel most when we play the violin. Now I know you're a lifetime pianist, and I also have a little bit of background in piano. Was my first instrument as well. I would say from my personal experience, it doesn't seem to crop up in the piano as much as it does in the violin, right?
I totally agree with you. It does not. It does not nearly. I mean, it's such a string player thing. I would imagine cello players, anybody who's playing with a bow will have this type of experience from time to time.
So I'd like to segue a little bit into orchestral playing, because I know that you're also playing in orchestras, and I want to just kind of talk about that a bit, because I know as violinists, sometimes we feel like this is a must, that we have to play in orchestras. Maybe we have a desire to play in orchestras. I'd like to have you talk a little bit about your orchestral experience.
Sure. So much beautiful repertoire out there to play. There comes a time sometimes in an orchestra where sometimes as a player, everyone's individual, but some people might feel as if they want to spend their private practice time nurturing their own individual violin skills and further their own knowledge of things that you didn't perhaps get to really delve into in your formal training and your studies when you were a university student. So people always have to prioritize. So it's a matter of, do you want to spend your downtime practicing the orchestra repertoire for the next concert, or do you want to spend your practice hours really trying to find that yummy tone production and developing, honing your skills more as far as shifting and position playing and other repertoire that you might have never had the opportunity to learn. So it's kind of like, sometimes people might have to choose one or the other just based on time, because we only have 24 hours in a day where we have other things that we do aside from play the violin. And so, I love playing in orchestras. It's a wonderful experience. It's very bonding. You get connected to the people in your section, and it's a wonderful experience. And so I love that, but I also love being able to have the time on my own to nurture my own technique, especially because I came to the violin a little bit later. When I look at my daughter or I look at my own students, they, because they grew up doing this, it's just, kind of, we wake up and brush our teeth. They wake up and just grab it, and it's no problem. There's nothing impeding them whatsoever. So, for the adult side of me, I feel like sometimes I have to nurture that playing, the skill set a little bit more than another adult who perhaps, started when they were 3 or 4 or 5 and played all the way through to this point where certain things might be a little less challenging for them at the orchestra level. So I love the orchestra. It's a wonderful experience, and I also love having the opportunity to explore my own skill set as well.
I'd like you to share your thoughts with everyone, how you work with your students in your violin studio, what you tell them before they play in an orchestra. They have to be at a specific skill set, or how do you work with that with your students?
Sure. So my students all have a variety of goals, and I have a variety of students. So some students, they genuinely really want to be here and learn the violin and study. And then some of the other students have parents that are just pushing them and forcing them to do this. So I'm dealing with we're talking about two different types of students that I have to manage. But in general, I would say 90% of my students do play in youth orchestra here in our community, and that is a very important goal. I like my students to play in the youth orchestra as an instructor because I feel like it rounds them out. Otherwise, if you're a violinist or any musician, if you're just sitting in your practice room, especially as a child, and all you know is just practicing for the lesson and then come to the lesson and then go home and do it again all over again. I feel like if they're in an orchestra, a youth orchestra, that's a good match for them as far as their level of playing goes. I think that can be a beautiful asset to a child's life, an asset and a facet, actually another facet of something that they do aside from the soccer, the tennis, all that other stuff, the sporting events. Playing in an orchestra is a very magical experience, especially for a young violin student. First of all, they're with other children that are like them and have similar challenges. and they're playing under, you know, a conductor with a baton. So it's teaching them a little bit of sense of that the world isn't only all about me. The world's about this other, you know, these other 50 kids that are sitting here and actually share a lot of the same problems that I have. And we are led by a conductor who's going to walk us through this very difficult, challenging repertoire. What I do tell some the challenges there is if I get a student who sets her goals too high and she's not ready for that experience, and if she and her parents are pushing to get her or him to achieve a certain goal, but physically they just haven't matured enough as a player to achieve that goal. So I did have one specific student who did actually, it was this case of where the parents just wanted her to achieve a certain level of orchestra playing, and the child had only had lessons with me for maybe 18 months or so, or 24 months, but it wasn't anywhere near congruent to the goal that the student was trying to achieve. So I begged the parents, I said, this isn't a good fit for your child. Wait a year. I said, give us one more year of lessons. I said, there's no emergency. This is always going to be there for her. She should try next year for it and she will get it. I said, if she tries this year, I said, I don't mean to sound negative. I'm just being a realistic instructor. I am your instructor and I am telling you to please do not push your daughter to get this because she's not ready. She's just not. She's ready for this, but she's not ready for that. And the parents did not listen to me. And they pushed her, and she did get a whopping case of tendinitis that she unfortunately still deals with. That was 3 years ago. And 17, this happened when she was 14. And she's not been able to grow and mature and develop. She did not make it into that group she was trying to get into, as I predicted, because I knew she didn't have the skill set. And once she would have gotten into that group, she definitely would not have been equipped to play the music that they were going to throw at her.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a very powerful message with that story for all violinists and parents and adult violinists to value the journey and to not to push, not to force, because that forcing can really have long-term effects, whether it's boosting practice sessions from 30 minutes to 3 hours without any type of training in the middle. And I think this, it's also very powerful for adult violinists to realize that, maybe playing in an orchestra is not necessarily the right match. If it's something that is just pushing, that may be causing stress and strain and causing physical issues, that it is okay. And I think a lot of adult violinists need to understand that it's okay to say no, because it's such an honor to be able to play in orchestras, and they want to play in orchestras, but at the same time, not to forget the personal violin journey, to put yourself first and think, okay, is this really benefiting me? Or is it benefiting the orchestra more that I'm there? So that's always something to think about, and to value personal decision of whether this is a right match for my violin journey at this time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, sometimes if you're in over your head, it can cause tension and stress, and then that totally comes out in your playing, and it also impedes your efforts to progress. It really does. And we always want to progress. We don't want to stay where we are. We want to learn more, but we have to learn more at our level, at our pace, and everybody has their own pace. This particular family, this girl plays, as I said, something that I would give an 8-year-old who's been with me since she was 6, let's say. That's what this high school girl is playing. And at the same time, the mom is talking about getting her violin scholarships for college. And, you know, what kind of pieces does she need to play for that? And I said, it's not going to happen. I said, she needs to play, you know, unaccompanied Bach. She needs to play Mozart Violin Concerto No. 3. She needs to play, you know, all these things. And so, and the mom's response to that was, well, okay, let's just start her on these pieces. And I said, she doesn't have the physical capability at this moment to do those things. I said, you can't just turn a switch and have somebody be able to play those pieces. Unfortunately, you know, she needs to have done this, and this before in order to play that Mozart concerto or to play that unaccompanied Bach. So parents need to be managed as much as the child. You know, you need to be there to teach the child, but many times parents need to be molded and shaped, and that's another difficult aspect. But, you know, so that's as far as teaching a child. But for grown-ups should not feel pressured to play in orchestras. I think that for many adults, a community orchestra is a much better fit if you want to play in an orchestra as an adult. If there is a community orchestra in your area, you can get together with friends and play. You can do quartets. You can do small little chamber pieces. You can always get with a pianist and play some solo stuff. There are other ways. What's far more important is that people stay healthy and pain-free. I think because nobody wants to be in pain. Nobody wants to have shoulder surgery because they insisted on the fact that they had to have a certain orchestra job. Orchestras will always be able to find violinists and other instrumentalists to fill those chairs. And any orchestra would want you as the player to be healthy and to feel well before even that for playing in the orchestra. They would have much sympathy towards anybody who's in pain and having physical difficulties. They would want people to rest and take time off and be healthy. And, you know, they would agree with this. You know, most orchestras would feel sorry and not want people to be hurting. And they would completely understand that. So it's just for adult students to try to figure out what's best for them, what's the best fit for them. And at the end of the day, guys, we only have one shoulder here and there, and that's all we've got, or one pair of knees. You can get knee replacements, you can get shoulder replacements, but you know, that's a big price to pay for just having an orchestra job. You don't want to jeopardize your health to that point, and things really can get out of hand quickly with those issues.
I think it's very important at all times for violinists to think about what exactly is a good match for them in their violin journey at that time, if it's benefiting them. And I think, I mean, it's great to hear that you're such an advocate to your students. You know, the students need to have somebody to be on their side, right? I mean, if the parents are pushing a little bit more than what is possible for the student, it's very important that they have a teacher that is, you know, being an advocate for them in that situation.
Thank you.
Yeah, most definitely. So Alyssa, thank you so much for just, you know, sharing a peek of your violin journey with us, your life, your musicianship, the passion that you have for music itself. It's really just been a pleasure, and I'm so excited for violinists around the world to hear your story and to be inspired by you. And so anybody that's looking for a violin teacher in the Peoria area, Alyssa is the one. Oh, and I just want to add one thing. I love what you do. I mean, there's many things that I love that you do. One thing that I absolutely love is you are such an advocate and an incredible music theory teacher for your students. Very rarely, I have to say, very rarely do I ever come across a violin teacher that emphasizes music theory within her studio. And you are, I mean, you do every summer, right? Every summer you hold music theory workshops.
Yes, that is a mandatory part of when you sign up for lessons with me. You have to be in the music theory workshop unless you're involved already. So I have students who play many instruments. So I may teach one child violin, but they may have a piano student, a piano teacher as well. And here in Peoria, we have some excellent piano teachers that are very big in theory, and they have their students in this music theory program called AIM, A-I-M, and they have their children very well educated as far as music theory goes. So for those children, I give them a pass on my workshop because they're already getting a lot of good things from their piano teacher. This is an example, but in the music theory workshop, we do lots of understanding about the sharps and the flats and the key signatures, and we do solfege, we do eurythmics, and we do music appreciation. They learn about the different eras of music history. We do listening. We learn how to listen. It's really fun.
I do feel that it's under taught to violinists. For pianists, that's part of the, at least from my experience learning piano, that was part of our lessons every single week. But for violinists, for whatever reason, I think it gets a little bit under taught with violin teachers. And that's why, I mean, I'm just thrilled you offer such an incredible workshop for your
I think mostly because I have the piano background, that really enables me to be able to do that. You know, I can take them right into my studio to the piano, and I could show them in black and white, and they can really understand the half steps when they see a black key to a white key and hear it on the piano. It just helps them with the ear training and with understanding things. And then once I show them the piano, then I get them each their own like little cardboard keyboard so that they can kind of, you know, emulate that when they're doing their, you know, figuring of whole steps and intervals and stuff like that. So, and they love that. They really do. They'll, you know, they'll come home and tell their moms, "Oh, we learned piano today. Wow, it was so cool," you know. And
Alyssa, your students are so lucky to have you as a teacher. I'm lucky to work with you. I feel very blessed to have our connection. Just so thankful for you.
I feel very lucky. I'm very grateful. Very, very grateful.
Alyssa and I have gotten to work together in person, not just online. And so much love. Thank you for being such an incredible inspiration for violinists and musicians, and anybody that's in your presence, your students, the parents of your students.
Yes. Thank you.
Do you have any last words that you'd like to add to the interview today?
I just really want to thank you for everything that you've done for me, because I've made some wonderful changes in the way I teach, and all of it, I really have to thank you for everything. I mean, my other teachers too, who've come before us, I really, really have to thank them too, because honestly, I don't know how they did it. They totally had their hands full with me, and it's not easy. You know, it wasn't an easy task that I asked of them to teach me, knowing what I wanted to learn. So they all, I mean, just blessings to all of them, and thanks to all of them for their patience and understanding and nurturing of my passion and of my desire to get to where I wanted to be. So I never, ever will forget any of them. And they are, to this day, marvelous, incredible people that I love. And they plus you have really helped mold me into the person I have become, the musician and the teacher I have become today, and my piano teacher from New York. She was a very special woman, very special. So all of you, my inspirations and my little angels. I mean, just the wind beneath my wings, really. All of you. So thank you all, to all of you.
Thank you, Alyssa, and thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. And yeah, so Alyssa and I both are sending tons of love to everybody who's watched this video, and inspiration to your violin journey.
Absolutely. Just keep positive and keep trying and keep finding new ways, because you will find your way. You will definitely figure it out and find a way. You just have to keep at it, and don't ever give up hope. And, you know, if that vibrato is so difficult and how can I possibly do it? Or if it's just something, reading in the positions is so hard, it will happen. It will come. It will. Just patience and belief. And you will, all of you will get to where you want to be.
Oh, thank you, Alyssa. Beautiful, beautiful words.
Ah.
So with that, love and hugs from Alyssa and I, and everybody take care, and until the next time.
Ready? Bye.